You live in a dictatorship. An actual no-joke dictatorship. There's a queen. She's the only one who breeds. Everyone else? You're a sterile worker slave, forever. Oh, and you eat poop. Your siblings poop. Your mom's poop.
The queen's poop.
That's your diet. Welcome to life as a naked mole rat, where you're born ugly, live as a slave, and die having accomplished nothing. Okay, so imagine being born into a society where 1. You will never reproduce, ever. You're biologically sterile. 2. You work your entire life for someone else's benefit. 3. You eat feces as a regular part of your nutrition. 4. You're hideous. Objectively, scientifically, horrifyingly ugly. And 5. There's no escape. You're underground in tunnels your entire life. That's not a dystopian novel. That's not a prison sentence. That's just being a naked mole rat. Let me explain why being nature's ugliest communist is actually worse than it sounds. All right, let's start with the obvious. You are ugly. Not unconventionally cute ugly. Not so ugly it's endearing ugly. Just horrifying! You're about 3 to 4 inches long, completely hairless except for a few sensory whiskers, and your skin is wrinkled, translucent pink flesh that looks like raw chicken. You have enormous buck teeth that stick out of your mouth even when it's closed. These teeth are constantly growing and you use them like shovels to dig through dirt. Your eyes are tiny, barely functional, almost vestigial. You're nearly blind because you live underground where vision doesn't matter. You have no external ears, just holes in your head. Your legs are short and stubby, and you walk in this awkward, shuffling waddle. Scientists describe you as looking like a walking hot dog with teeth. And honestly, that's generous. You're so ugly that when scientists first studied you, they couldn't believe you were a mammal. You don't look like you should be alive. You look like something that escaped from a lab experiment gone wrong. But here's the thing, your ugliness is actually functional. You don't need fur because you live underground in stable temperatures. You don't need good vision because you live in darkness. You don't need external ears because underground acoustics are different. Evolution stripped away everything, unnecessary, and left you with this nightmare appearance. But being ugly is honestly the least of your problems. Now let's talk about your society, because it's legitimately dystopian. You live in a colony of 7,300 naked mole rats, all underground, all related. And at the top, there's a queen, not a leader, not a dominant female. A queen, like bees, like ants, like termites. She's the only female who breeds. She's larger than everyone else. She's aggressive. She's in complete control. And everyone else? You're workers. Sterile workers. When you're born, your reproductive system doesn't fully develop. You're biologically incapable of breeding. Why? Because the queen produces hormones and pheromones that suppress everyone else's reproductive development. She controls your biology. You can't rebel. You can't leave. You can't reproduce, you're born a slave and you die a slave. And what do you do all day? You dig, you maintain tunnels. You find food. You defend the colony. You care for the queen's babies, your siblings, even though you'll never have your own. You work, constantly, for the queen's benefit. Now there's a hierarchy among workers. Some are soldiers, slightly larger rats who defend against snakes and other predators. Some are workers who dig tunnels and gather food. Some are frequent workers who do the hardest labor. But none of you breed. That privilege belongs to the queen and her chosen males, usually 1-3, breeding males out of the entire colony. If the queen dies, a violent power struggle ensues. Females who were sterile their whole lives suddenly become fertile. They fight each other viciously for dominance. The winner becomes the new queen. Her reproductive system kicks in. She starts suppressing everyone else again, and the cycle continues. You might live 30 years like this. 30 years of sterile labor for someone else's offspring. Now let's talk about your diet, because it gets worse. You're herbivorous. You eat underground tubers and roots. But here's the problem. Plant material is really hard to digest, especially underground plants that are tough and fibrous. So how do you get all the nutrients out? You eat it twice! First pass, you eat the tuber. Your digestive system extracts what it can. Second pass, you eat your own feces. This is called coprophagy, and it's not optional. It's necessary for survival. Your digestive system needs 2 passes to fully break down the cellulose and extract vitamins, particularly vitamin B, which is produced by bacteria in your gut during the first digestion. So you eat, you poop. You eat the poop. You poop again. And it's not just your poop. You eat other colony members' poop too. It's communal. The queen produces special feces that's extra nutritious. Workers compete to eat it because it contains her. Hormones and pheromones that maintain social order. Yeah, you're eating poop that's designed to keep you sterile and submissive. It's like eating propaganda. And baby naked mole rats? When they're first born, they can't digest solid food yet. So what do they eat? Adult poop. That's their first meal. Mom feeds them fecal pellets, so they can inoculate their guts with the bacteria needed to digest food later. Your first meal is literal crap, and it doesn't get better from there. Now let's talk about where you live. You're born underground. You live underground. You die underground. You will never see the sun, never feel rain, never see the sky. Your entire world is a network of tunnels, sometimes 2 to 3 miles of tunnels in the dry regions of East Africa. The tunnels are dark, narrow, and stuffy. The air is low in oxygen and high in carbon dioxide because you're underground with hundreds of other rats, breathing the same recycled air. But you've adapted. You can survive in CO2 levels that would kill most mammals. Your hemoglobin is specially adapted to grab oxygen efficiently, even when there's barely any available. You basically live in a low oxygen, high CO2 environment that would be toxic to almost any other mammal. It's like living in a submarine with bad ventilation, forever. And the tunnels? You dig them yourself. You use your teeth as shovels. Your lips seal behind your teeth so you don't swallow dirt while digging. You can move backward as fast as you move forward because the tunnels are tight and you can't turn around. You live in total darkness except for the rare moments when someone breaks through to the surface to push out dirt. Those surface moments? Incredibly dangerous. Snakes, hawks, and other predators are waiting for the 1 second when a naked mole rat pops out to dump dirt. So you don't go outside. You can't go outside safely. You're trapped underground for your entire 30-year lifespan. Now here's something weird. You don't feel pain like other mammals. Specifically, you don't feel pain from acid or capsaicin, the chemical that makes peppers spicy. Your pain receptors are wired differently. You've adapted to high CO2 environments, which means your tissues are often slightly acidic. If you felt that acidity as pain, you'd be in constant agony. So evolution turned off that pain pathway. Scientists discovered this and thought, cool, maybe we can learn from this to develop better pain medications for humans. But for you, it just means you're living in conditions that should be painful, but you've adapted to not feel it. You're not living comfortably. You're living in an environment so harsh that your body had to literally shut off pain receptors just to function. That's not a superpower. That's a survival adaptation to a nightmare environment. Okay, here's the one cool thing about being a naked mole rat. You basically don't get cancer. Scientists have studied thousands of naked mole rats and almost never found cancer. Your cells have an extra layer of protection against tumors. You produce high molecular weight hyaluronan, a substance that prevents cells from dividing uncontrollably. This is huge for cancer research. Scientists are studying you to understand how to prevent cancer in humans. So congrats! You're medically valuable. But you don't benefit from this. You still live in tunnels, eat poop, serve a queen, and never reproduce. Your cancer immunity just means you get to do all that for 30 years instead of dying early. You're medically important but personally miserable. Now, let's talk about the few males who do get to breed. If you're a male and you're chosen by the queen, congrats. You're one of 1 to 3 breeding males. Except it's not actually great. You still have to work. You're not royalty. You're just occasionally allowed to mate with the queen. The rest of the time, you're digging tunnels like everyone else. And your position isn't secure. If the queen decides she doesn't like you anymore, you're demoted back to sterile worker status. Your reproductive system can actually regress if you stop breeding. So even if you win the genetic lottery, you're still basically a slave who occasionally gets breeding privileges. And when the queen dies, you're probably going to be killed or exiled by the new queen who wants her chosen males. There's no retirement plan, no golden years. Just work until you die. And let's be clear, this society is violent. When the queen dies, the female power struggle is brutal. They bite each other. They shove each other. They fight for dominance with no mercy. The winner becomes queen. The losers? If they're lucky, they go back to being workers. If they're unlucky, they're killed or exiled from the colony. And soldiers? When they fight predators like snakes, they don't hesitate to sacrifice themselves. They'll attack a snake even though they're tiny and defenseless. They bite, they swarm, they die protecting the colony. Because that's what they're for. That's their biological purpose. Individual survival doesn't matter. Colony survival matters. You're expendable, always. So let's recap what it's like being a naked mole rat. You're objectively hideous, like a raw hot dog with teeth. You live in an actual dictatorship ruled by a queen. You're born biologically sterile. You will never reproduce. You work your entire life for the queen's offspring. You eat poop, yours, your siblings. The queen's, as nutrition. Your first meal as a baby is fecal matter. You live underground forever, never see sunlight. Your tunnels have toxic CO2 levels. You dig with your teeth through dirt for 30 years. You don't feel certain types of pain because your environment is that harsh. You're immune to cancer, but it just means longer servitude. Even breeding males are still basically slaves if the queen dies. Violent chaos erupts. You're expendable. Individual life doesn't matter. Naked mole rats are proof that you can be biologically fascinating, medically important, and individually miserable all at the same time. You're a scientific marvel and an evolutionary horror story. You live longer than almost any rodent. You don't get cancer. You can survive in extreme conditions. And you spend every single day of that long, cancer-free life as an ugly, sterile, poop-eating slave in an underground dictatorship. If you enjoyed learning about nature's ugliest dystopia, smash that like button and subscribe for more Why It Sucks to Be Ein videos. Coming up next, Why It Sucks to Be a Mayfly, spoiler. You spend 2 years as a larva underwater, finally emerge as an adult, and then you have literally 24 hours to mate before you die. Some species get 5 minutes. Drop a comment. Would you rather be a sterile worker eating poop forever, or live 24 hours as an adult? Both options are existentially terrible. Thanks for watching, and remember, at least you're not born into an inescapable underground dictatorship.